Welcome in, folks, for a new season of What's Bruin. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined, as usual, by the one, the only Troyoni Rink reporter herself, Gail Trioni. Gail, how are you? Are you excited for a new season of What's Bruin and a new Bruins season?
Yes, and yes, and yes. And I'm even more excited for you and Kenny to kick off your new show as well.
I am thrilled that you mentioned that. Yes, as was announced on Monday, a little bit into Tuesday, Puck Off Hockey has been rebranded. We are now Next Shift Hockey, which comes with it a new show. Puck Off will come back at some point in a completely different reformatted show, just going a completely different direction with that. And I'm working with Kenny Kaminsky for our brand new show, the Next Shift podcast. We're going to cover basically prospects everywhere. He and I both want to dive into, the Canadian juniors, NCAA, some of the leagues overseas, KHL, DEL, things like that. Just any player that has a shot at coming over for the NHL. And it allows us to do that with this. In so many different ways. So we're looking forward to it, and we're already trying to line up a couple guests to that some people who watch the show might be familiar with as far as the names. So thank you so much, uh, Tyler, jumping in here with the congratulations on the announcements. So thank you. Um, Kind of weird to be launching a brand new season of What's Brewing at the beginning of August, but since we're going to start the season with probably once every other week, just to kill the summer off. There's still a little bit of news in Bruins world. Minor stories, I would say, but we can start with those, and then we'll get to any viewer questions we have. Um, yeah, I'm excited. You ready to go?
Absolutely. Jump right in.
Awesome. So recently it came out through player interviews on podcasts and stuff like that. The Bruins are probably going to enter the season without a captain. And it sounds to me, from what I gather, they're just going to have Pasternak and McAvoy with A's. Now, they can have one more A if they want to.
They could actually have two more.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure they could have two.
Yeah. And they probably will. They'll probably rotate. They'll probably have maybe Hampus Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, even Elias Lindholm possibly wearing that third A with McAvoy and Pasternak.
Would you rotate two A's?
I would have no problems. They've done it in the past where when it was after so there was a time when obviously Char was the captain, Bergeron wore the A, and then they rotated home and away after.
Mm-hmm.
Like David Krejci had the A for the first half of the home games, and Brad Marchand wore the A for the road games. And then they switched. And that was
Yeah.
one season. And then when Bergeron took over as captain, the same thing happened. Marchand had the second A, and instead of Krejci having the A all the time, they rotated it. And I have no problems with that. I have no problems with that at all. Charlie McAvoy and David Pasternak at media breakup day were very vocal about the fact that no one needs to wear the C to be a leader in Boston. No one needs to wear the C to be the number one leader in the locker room. They want, everyone to have a voice. David Pasternak put the team on his back. Everyone, I think, thought that Charlie McAvoy was a shoo-in to take over as the next captain, whether Brad Marchand stayed or not. When he finally left the Bruins, everyone thought that Charlie McAvoy was a shoo-in to become the C. And at one point, David Pasternak was like, I don't even want it. But I think after, with Brad Marchand being injured before the trade deadline, Brad Marchand being injured, Hampus Lindholm being injured, Charlie McAvoy being injured. David Pastrnak was left on an island by himself. He was the only one that was wearing a letter at the beginning of the season, still wearing a letter at the end of the season. You know what I mean? So he kind of stepped up, and a lot of people in the locker room and outside the locker room saw the leadership from David Pastrnak change. He was a little bit quieter when he didn't have to be the voice because Marchand was there, Bergeron was there, Krejci was there, Charlie Coyle was there. You can name any player that was there. David Pastrnak didn't have to be the vocal one.
Brandon Carlo was there.
Brandon Carlo, right. So, but now he is one of the faces of the franchise going forward.
He's also one of the longest tenured.
Yes, a lot of I think other than Charlie McAvoy, him and Charlie McAvoy are the two longest tenured Bruins right now. If you look at it, because Carlo's gone.
Yeah.
Marchand's gone. I mean, who's left?
In the same kind of time frame?
Yeah.
Maybe Pavel Zacha?
No, Pavel Zacha doesn't have as many years as
I was going to say, but he's nowhere close to.
Pavel Zacha was traded for Eric Holla, and
that's what I mean. That was
4 years ago. David Pastrnak were already there.
Yeah, because that was 4 years ago that they brought him in.
Yeah.
So I think he would be the next longest tenured Bruin, though.
Yeah.
Him or
Hampus. McAvoy first.
That's what I'm saying. It's Pastrnak, McAvoy.
Yeah.
Pastrnak then McAvoy, or McAvoy then Pastrnak?
McAvoy, Pastrnak.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he got the one – he burned the year early.
Right.
Because of that playoff run.
Right.
So without that burnt year of his contract, he's not the longest tenured. Right. But then the next two, I don't remember what order, but it would be Hampus Lindholm and Pavel Zacha.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's Hampus Lindholm and then Pavel Zacha, though, because they did Hampus Lindholm at the trade deadline, and then Zacha, I think, was the following offseason, like you said, for Eric Holla.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but again, like, a lot of people are complaining that they're not going to have a seat. Who cares? Who cares?
The fact that they have come out and, like, I think we've really only heard from McAvoy on it, but the fact that he's come out and they both have basically said, we're comfortable wearing A's and we're comfortable working together. This is our team.
Well, Pastrnak said they both said that at the end of the year last year.
Yeah,
they both
more recent.
They both, but and then you got to also look at the fact that they have a whole new coaching staff. I mean, yes. I mean, Jay Leach is here, Bob Sesna is still here, Chris Kelly's still here. But you got to look at the fact that Marco Sturm is here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so you have a new coach that's coming in.
And the new assistant.
But you have, like, a new head coach. So he's got to see. And, you know, and you don't just get handed the seat. I mean, I know that Zdeno Chara, that was in his initial contract. I want to be the captain. You know, I'm not coming to Boston without being the captain, whatever. But then Bergeron earned the captaincy. You know what I mean?
The thing with Chara, though, is, like, your sales pitch to him was, we want you to turn this franchise around. Right. So for him to go, give me a guarantee that I can do that is not unreasonable.
Right. But what I mean by saying that is that just because Chara didn't earn the C, you know what I mean? He may have earned it off course because he wasn't a Bruin, you know what I mean? So it wasn't the normal, you know, next step. Yes, it was the next step for Char, but it wasn't necessarily, it was only the next step for the Bruins because they wanted to change the culture.
Well, that's my point. That's how he earned it. He earned it because you went to him and said, we need change in our locker room, and you're the guy.
But a lot of people don't view it as he earned it because he wasn't a Bruin.
Well, they're just wrong.
Well, okay. But then Bergeron 100% earned the C.
Absolutely.
Brad Marchand 100% earned the C.
Yeah, and you
can make the argument that Pastrnak or McAvoy could earn the C. Now,
and William points out here, all things being equal, Pasta would be my guy based on him being an Ironman. He's on 3 straight years of 82 games played. So, and McAvoy does have a larger history of injuries. Is that a deciding factor for you, though?
No, because look at Bergeron.
I mean, I also sit here and I go, look at Colorado.
Right.
They were without a captain for 3 years because
Right.
Gabriel Landeskog was on IR.
Right.
So, like, it's totally fine doing it that way. Like, is it that shouldn't be your deciding factor? It should be, how does the team react to each player? And I think you're going to see a little bit of leadership in the offensive side from Pastrnak and from the defensive side in McAvoy. And I think that's probably how they're going to run it. And then those two will kind of meet at the top as no?
No,
You're shaking your
that's
head.
not how the Bruins work. They've never worked that way. It's just because Pastrnak has every right as one of the voices to be able to go up to Mason Lohrei and say to him, you misplayed that puck, or, hey, that was, you know what I mean, or anything. He has the right to lift up the defense as much as Charlie McAvoy has the right to go up to Fabian Lysell and be like, listen, when we're on the power play together, let's have these open lines of communication. I don't think that it's defense versus offense. I think it's just whoever has the voice, whoever's on the ice at that moment, whoever's on the bench at that moment, whoever may be running drills in practice. I don't think it really is an offense. Yes, McAvoy is your leader of the defensemen, and obviously Pastrnak is your leader of, but I don't think in terms of having a voice in the room, I don't think offense and defense comes into play.
No, and I should probably clarify what I meant in that regard. I agree with everything you just said, and I think there will be those conversations across the board. They all always have those conversations. Like you said, it's not just McAvoy or Pastrnak that can go up to Lohrei and say, "Hey, you pinched too much on that play." Zadorov could tell him. Andrew Peeke could tell him. Honestly, Tanner Jeannot could tell him. Like, that's how they run the locker room, and that's how they would maintain it. I'm thinking more or less of the off ice captain responsibility type things where because the captain does a lot of the planning stuff off ice and all that stuff, the things that fans don't always know about, the behind the scenes stuff. I can see things kind of filtering in that way where it's okay, David, you're in charge of making sure all the forwards get this information, and McAvoy, you're in charge of getting all the defensive players to know that they have the information.
I just think that I think that without having a captain this year, they may have more informal team meetings.
Or that could be.
You know what I mean? Not closed door team meetings, but more informal, like, let's get this information. They're going to definitely, before and after practice, they're all going to, McAvoy and Pastrnak are probably going to talk a little bit. Zatorov would probably talk a little bit. Hampus Lindholm. They're going to be putting that voice out there without having that solid number one captain. I think that you're going to see a lot more of it spread across as opposed to McAvoy, because they're not going to want to segregate players, even though it's not a segregation. It may come off that way if only McAvoy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're saying only McAvoy is going to talk to the defenseman, then, a younger player may be like, well, why do I listen to David Pastrnak? You know what I mean? I think
fair enough. Yeah.
it's going to be, especially without that definitive C, I think you're going to see it be a little bit more of whoever wants to step up and say something. And just like you said, it could be Tanner Jeannot as well. It could be Pavel Zacha. You know what I mean? There's so many different players that have been either in the league or in the Bruins locker room for a few, you know what I mean, enough to know what the Bruins expectations and culture is to be able to bring in those young players in training camp. And even as the season goes on, because you got to remember, Mark Rister may be new to the Bruins as a head coach, but he's not new to the Bruins.
And he's not new to the culture because
And
he
he's
helped
not new
set
to the
this
culture
tone.
because he was there with Chara. He saw it change. He was there before Chara, so he saw it change. You know what I mean? So, like, that's the other aspect of it as well, is that he was there before Chara and then during Chara, and now he's going to be there after Chara. So, and I
Well, can we even say that? Because isn't Chara back with the organization now in some unknown capacity?
that still has not been confirmed.
So, well, wasn't he at their draft table?
But again, it has not been confirmed by the Bruins, so no one knows what role he has.
He's got
I mean?
some
If
sort of
he has
role.
an official role, it could be that him and Adam McQuaid are just talking about different players, and
Yeah.
Adam's asking, you know what I mean? It could be that Don Sweeney's like, hey, while we're working through not having a new captain this year, can you help McAvoy and Pasternak take on some of the leadership? Can you talk to them? Because even though he was there at the beginning of their careers, they were there longer without him than they were with him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's so many different, and Chara is so like, he's gonna be eventually a big part of this organization. We just don't know in what capacity yet.
Yeah, and until his role is defined, we don't know.
He could just be a special consultant to Don Sweeney. Like, no one knows. No one knows. He could be unofficially the defensive coach, you know what I mean, without having the title, because he's not going to be there for all 82 games. He's not going to be there for every single practice. He's not, you know what I mean? He's not going to
give you a per diem every day that you show up
with the team, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like you said, until we know what Chara's defined role or even his title is, because at least with a title, you can kind of sort of jump. Like, they're not going to be like, he is the director of stuff.
Right.
And then you just go, oh, okay, so he does stuff.
Right. Because you got to look at Adam McQuaid. He's not going to take Adam McQuaid's role from him.
No. He might assist McQuaid with stuff and help in player development. He might be a liaison between the coaching staff and player development to be,
because
like there's a lot of
possibilities. Allow McQuaid to spend more time down in Providence if Chara is spending more time at Warrior.
Yep, absolutely. Now, William has a good question. Is it set in stone that the two A's will be lasting all season?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't take that away. I took it as this is how we're going to start, and we're going to let things organically happen, basically.
Yeah. I mean, even Sturm said in his opening press conference, he has no intention of coming in and naming a captain. It's going to happen, and it could happen this season. It may happen next season. We don't know.
Yeah, and based on the culture that Chara and Sturm and those guys created, if there's any team that can last without a captain and just go with multiple A's, because a lot of people sit there and say that no team, like teams have to have a captain for this reason or that reason.
No.
And I'm sure that there's one reason or another that most teams have to at some point determine a captain. I mean, we saw it in Colorado with Landeskog and O'Reilly, where they had to make a decision because a player said make a choice.
Right.
That's just not the culture of the Bruins.
Right.
That was set with Chara and has carried on till now with Pasternak and McAvoy, and they won't let it get there.
Right.
Because we saw with other players, when someone doesn't fit in the locker room, they go straight to the source, the person. They say, he doesn't fit in. He won't get in line. We've done what we can. We need your help. He's not a Bruin.
Right.
And then they move on.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't know all of those conversations. We'll never know all those conversations that happen behind closed doors. But we do know that some players specifically said, I don't feel at home here. Move me. Dougie Hamilton comes to mind.
I was just about to say Dougie Hamilton comes to mind. He was one of the ones that was very vocal about it.
Yep. And so,
yep.
So I was going to say, some of them come off more strong like Denny Lemieux and Slapshot. Trade me right fucking now. Mm-hmm. But it's, every player's a little bit different in that regard. Again, we'll never know those. Someone's probably gone into Don Sweeney's office and said, trade me right now. I don't care. He's been the GM long enough. I'm sure it's happened. Mm-hmm. Cooler heads may have prevailed. And then, then they said, no, never mind. I'm okay with staying. We worked through it.
Right. That was Jake DeBrusk.
Closer to Jake DeBrusk. But he's also no longer here. So,
right.
It's...
Yeah, but he's not no longer here because he didn't fit in Boston.
No, he's just no longer here.
He's chasing the money.
Yeah, he's just no longer here.
Right.
So to William's question, I don't think anything is set in stone. That's one thing that Don Sweeney is very careful about doing. Nothing like even Jeremy Swayman has a contract for the next 8 years here with the Bruins. Is that set in stone? No. If Jeremy Swayman comes out and has a crappy season, then they'll look at their options.
Right.
But, fans are already at a point where that hasn't happened yet, but they assume it's happened.
Right.
So it's...
Well, because they're manifesting it because that's what they want.
Right, because the most hated person on the Boston Bruins is always the starting goaltender.
Correct.
They're never good enough.
Speaking of goaltenders, that's a good segue into Khudobin announcing his retirement.
Yeah. God, he was fun to watch.
He was.
He was. I don't know if he was more fun to watch on the ice or in the interviews.
I think it was both.
It just a happy-go-lucky guy. It would have been great to watch him get that cup with Dallas.
Yeah. Was that 2020, right?
I think so. I think it was 2020 for that run because he came out of nowhere for it. He was that bridge between Bishop and Ottinger, and he filled that role well. But
yeah, he did.
I think, I'll put it this way, given their youth, just because of their age, but based on what I've seen so far, if they get a solid enough run in the NHL and they sort out their game, Anton Khudobin is the peak of what Brandon Bussi or Michael DiPietro could be. That is their absolute highest ceiling at their biggest peak. And the only reason why I say that is because they're both very young. They both have been only, not DiPietro, but DiPietro was completely ruined by the Vancouver Canucks. They didn't help develop him. They underdeveloped. They reverse developed him because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously on the one-way contract with Boston. So I don't think right now he's NHL ready, but players are still learning at every level. So to completely write him off, no. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're able to go into the season banking on him being as good as Korpisalo. He's not at that NHL level.
No.
So he can't give you 30 starts in the NHL right now. He's not there yet. Maybe another year in Providence and he gets there. But I'm not sure. And you just lost Brandon Bussi to Florida. Maybe getting a new coach, some new scouts, and some new reports. This is, when you go side to side, this is where you show weak spot on your gloves. So if you do this, you fix that. Next thing you know, he's off on a tear.
Right.
Just a fresh set of eyes can help. So it would be naive of me to rule that out. But also, when you look at Anton Khudobin, let's face it, he's not Sergei Bobrovsky.
Correct.
And DiPietro won't be that either.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Kevin jumping in, which is awesome. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi,
how you been? But yeah, no, I'm rooting for him, and I always enjoyed watching Khudobin. But remember when people were clamoring for him to be the starter?
Yeah. Because anyone was better than Rask compared, according to most Bruins fans.
And look, I'm all for contract value. I'm all for getting the best value contract that you possibly can get. I think we'll look at Anaheim. They have Lucas Dostal on an incredible deal right now. In a year or two, he'll probably be one of the best value contracts in the league if he keeps up his development the way he is. That being said, there was a time where that was Jonathan Quick.
Right.
There was a time when that was Henrik Lundqvist. So, there's always going to be. You remember when Nathan McKinnon was making $6 million? So, anyways, Kevin says, "Are we excited for Boston college hockey this year?" The Boston College Bruins.
Listen, I will root for any Bruins prospect, but I am a Husky first and foremost, so I will always root against Boston College.
I'm just excited for hockey in general.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking forward to it. And Boston's got players at other places. So I'll let all of you guys focus on BC and I'll look at everyone else. That's fine with me too. Boston College is going to see, their tickets skyrocket in price. Like I don't need to deal with all that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like it'll be fun to watch. I'll watch it on TV and that's good, or on streaming. Sorry. TV is not TV anymore. But I'll be excited to watch and see how they do. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he mentioned the NCAA.
Okay.
Because one of the Bruins who was supposed to have an NCAA season isn't going to anymore. Cole Spicer has lost his spot with Arizona State. Conflicting reports out there.
They're not conflicting reports. The actual report is nothing more than the injuries and stuff like that. People are making up their own. They're making up they're jumping to conclusions. I mean, even Dom, he's not here right now. I wish Dom would sign on. But even Dom was like, listen, this is, people are reading into it more than they need to be. They just are looking for any reason to shit all over Don Sweeney. Another
make it a bad draft pick.
It's horrible that he's had some bad injuries. It's horrible that, his trajectory has gone the way it's gone. But that's not to say his career is over.
No, actually, if anything, like it's going to make his story a lot more interesting. Mm-hmm. Like his story was already going to be interesting because he did have the struggles in college the first year.
There he is.
Dom is right here. Let's see. First comment. He's asked if I'm excited for hockey, which, yes, I think we both are. We just came off the summer showcase. The under-17 is going on right now, and the Hlinka Gretzky next week. Lots of hockey. Yes, I am thrilled. And Dom, we were just talking about your knowledge and your insight, and wondering kind of where your thoughts are on the Cole Spicer situation. Gail, did you want to specifically ask him a question about it, or?
No, I mean, I wish I could go back and find that tweet that Dom put out that basically was just shutting down all the rumors.
Yeah, if Dom probably remembers what he wrote, so he'll probably throw it in the comments. But yeah, Kevin, he says, wasn't Spicer a 4th or 5th round pick anyway? Why would anyone want to put any of this on Sweeney? Well, people want to put it on Sweeney because anytime they get a chance to blame Don Sweeney for anything that goes wrong, they like to take advantage of that opportunity. And yes, he was 117 overall back in 2022 out of the USHL, the U.S. National Development Team. And 2 picks later, they got Don-Zlach Mellis.
Right.
So, and they were both 4th round picks. And oh, by the way, for those keeping track, 2022, 54th overall, they got Matthew Poitras. So the one thing about Spicer, though, is he does have talent. The talent is there. He's had struggles along the way, but they still have his rights. So this doesn't affect the Bruins directly in a negative way. He's just going to have to take maybe a different path. I mean, it's unfortunate. Injuries happen. So Kevin adds in, anyone with brain cells to constantly blame Sweeney probably didn't even know who Spicer was until this came out.
100%. I agree with you 100%, Kevin.
And you know what else, Kevin? They also didn't know who Don-Zlach Mellis was either.
Half of them don't even know who James Hagens is.
Dom says, I will only say this about Spicer. Media need to forget about clicks and use a player suffering with mental health issues and speculation. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that there was, when he was dealing with great issues his last go around in the NCAA, and he stepped away and he announced that he was dealing with some mental health issues that he was going to get help with. I know because Dom and I talked about it on the show. And he went and he played for Dubuque this past season. He showed his talent level is still there. So talent's not the issue here.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing some summer classes to get back into the NCAA eligibility. And this sounds like it's injury related. Now, I don't know what the injury is. I don't know if anybody knows what the injury is. I'm not going to speculate what it is. But all we can do is hope that he heals up whatever way he needs to, whether it's physical, mental, whatever. He's got to take care of himself first.
There's only 2 facts to this story that are 100% known. 1, he's not returning.
He's not returning to Arizona State.
Arizona State, right. And 2, he has 2 years left on his eligibility. That's it.
For the NCAA.
2 facts. Those are the only 2 facts that are 100% known. Is he has 2 years left in his eligibility in NCAA, and then he's not returning to Arizona. That is it. That is the only thing that is known 100%.
Right. And to blow it up beyond that, I mean, again, if people actually watched him, they would have seen, and the video is there. Dom and I broke down his play frequently last year. The talent level is there.
Mm-hmm.
I would sit here and say, whatever we can do to help this kid continue developing, Bruins are probably going to do it because the level of talent is there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean he's going to be NHL ready tomorrow because all of a sudden he's not playing in the NCAA? No. It just means his path to get to the NHL could be very different from what we're used to. And guess what? That's okay.
Kevin.
Kevin, you need water to survive. That's another 100% known fact. Yes, Kevin, and they need water to make the ice that he plays on. So if that's how you're trying to get the angle, I'm with you. Dom adds in, I love most of Bruins media, but half the time they do not know what they are talking about. I listened to 2 Bruins pods today that said no one talked about Poitras making the team 2 years ago, and no one knew who Don Zlachmelis was a year ago. And Dom, we can both sit here and say they weren't watching our show. Because anybody who was watching Dom and I talk about him knows that those were 2 names that we've been talking about for the last 2 years. Dom called him called Matthew Poitras making that team his first year. So Kenny adds in, Spicer got injured early in the USHL season, missed half the year. The kid was all the talent in the world. It's everything else that's getting in the way. I'm rooting for him. I think we all are, Kenny. Anyone who's actually paying attention is actually rooting for him. And if he doesn't, it's not on Sweeney.
Only people that are not rooting for Cole Spicer to succeed, to bounce back and to succeed, are the people that strictly want Don Sweeney to fail so he can be fired. That's it. Those are the only people that don't want Cole Spicer to succeed.
Yeah. And even then, I don't think it's an attack on Spicer. They're just indirectly rooting for his failure because they want to blame it on Sweeney and say it was a wasted draft pick.
They don't want this Bruins team to have any wins this season. They want this team to go 0-82 so they can go, see, Don Sweeney doesn't know what he's doing. They want David Pastrnak to have more turnovers than Connor McDavid so they can say, see, turnover machine. They want Charlie McAvoy to not do something right so they
want him to get injured again. See, he's prone to injury.
There are certain people that just want to complain about this team that if they just want to bury this team, but yet they're reportedly Bruins fans. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Kevin says the minute after Dom, myself, and Mark interviewed Poitras, I said that kid will be in the NHL. I just didn't think it was going to be as soon as it was. Yeah, but I would say this, Kevin. Dom has been watching him, and that's why Dom. Not to say that you don't know what you're talking about, because I know your knowledge is very good, Kevin. But Dom, having watched him for as long as he did, was able to sit there and say this is where his game is at.
Well,
So
we have to be honest. Sorry, let's be honest. How many Bruins fans watch any hockey outside of college hockey, AHL, and NHL? And a lot of them aren't even watching college or AHL. They're very selective with
consistently,
what
they're not watching it consistently.
but they're very selective. They're more like going off of Twitter and what clips are being shown on Twitter, right? Like how many people that are true Bruins fans actually pay attention to Providence? How
A
many?
few.
Right.
There's a fraction.
That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
with you. Exactly.
There are a lot of people. And so Dom, we're very lucky that we have Dom who is so in tune with the OHL and everything else that he feeds us his knowledge. You know what I mean? Like we're very lucky. And he's not the only one. There's quite a few people that do follow the OHL, the QMHL, you know, all of those. You know what I mean? Like that consistently, not pick and choose. Like
Yeah.
how many Bruins fans actually watched Worlds this year?
Only a few. A few
Right,
extra because of guys like James Hagens and players like that they were hoping to be Bruins or whatever.
right,
But it's still a small sliver.
right. And not even just that, but how many people realize that Jeremy Swayman was in net when they won gold? You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
we're talking about the whole, like a lot of Bruins fans are part-time Bruins fans. They watch the NHL season and they're on Twitter and they get their news from people on Twitter, but they don't actually follow and there's a lot of knowledgeable fans out there. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of knowledgeable fans and there's a lot of true fans out there, but a lot of people are part-time fans. A lot of people are not living and breathing hockey the way some people do.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that Kenny and I are going to look to help
Yeah.
educate people on by covering the leagues and trying to bring in some of the people from, whether it's from those leagues, whether it's scouts. Like that's one of the things Kenny and I are going to look to do. And as Kevin points here, I didn't watch anything on Plotter before he was drafted. I had to go through and learn about him.
Right. I was one of those as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I read all the scouting reports on him before he was drafted because I read scouting reports, but I had never seen him play. You know what I mean? I saw a clip here and there, but I didn't, other than like really getting my information from other people, I didn't know that much about Matthew Poitras. You know what I mean? Because I don't follow the OHL. I admit I'm getting better about it because of the fact it's such a pipeline. You know what I mean? And I'm becoming and I love reading Dom's website. I'm gonna give a shout out to Dom because
of course,
phenomenal. We love you, Dom, and we'd be lost without you. But even like that's why I'm so excited for you and Kenny to get going on the Next Shift podcast, because everyone talks about the Bruins. We talk about the Bruins, right? How many people really talk about prospects, and not just prospects in the system, but potential prospects?
Yeah.
And that's a different little niche that not a lot of people have. And that's why I'm so excited for what's upcoming with Next Shift.
Yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. I can't tell you how many times Kenny and I were just, we were chatting back and forth. What game do you have on right now? Bruins weren't even playing.
Yeah.
Those off days during the playoffs, or remember when we got down to one game a day?
Mm-hmm.
We're both sitting there going, there's 2 AHL games on tonight too. So I'm still sitting here with 3 screens going on with games, and then you also had the CHL tournaments going on, and just there was still plenty of hockey. So that's when we were just like, let's take this kind of approach with the show, and that's kind of how that all came to be. But as Kevin says, casual fans will always outweigh media and diehard knowledgeable fans. 100%. We're not dumping on casual fans, but things like Twitter and other social media outlets allow casual fans and allow blowhards to sit here and put stupid shit out there that casual fans who care take information as fact from because they heard it from Joe Schmo whatever site, and it's just not true.
Can you pull up Dom's comment?
I was gonna pull it up because he was helping out William here. This is a real question that I like when people ask these. How far is Spicer from being AHL ready? And as Dom said, if he can get things together, Evan Gold will sign him to a 2-way AHL deal and have him play in Maine. This is exactly what I think they should do, depending on where he's at physically. Like, clearly hockey has been something to help him in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think taking hockey from him is the right move. And so he's someone where we don't talk about Maine enough, but there's also not. See you later, Kevin. Thanks for jumping in. We'll talk to you again soon. There's a lot of NHL teams who don't use the ECHL, AHL, NHL pipeline in a definitive way. Dom, have a great night. His last comment, other than heading out, go tuck the grandson in, wish him all the best, and good luck with everything, and hopefully your family's doing well. Oh, he will be back. Okay. We'll see you when you get back then. Sorry. I was reading back to he said, I want to say I have a piece coming out about the Hlinka Gretzky, and 2026 is a huge draft for Boston. Fans should pay attention to it. It's on NHL Network and in the US and TSN in Canada. So if you haven't, as soon as you're done watching this, or you can pause it and listen, Dom.Hockey, and throw your email in at the bottom because you'll get all of his pieces sent to you. It's great. Like, guess what? If there's something that you aren't interested in, you don't have to read it. But all the information is there. So Dom.Hockey, and we're working on something right now for the next shift as well, so that there's more out there with it. I don't even know where I was. Oh, so yeah, I'm with Dom. I would love to see them sign him to an ECHL contract and earn his way up. Kenny adds, Rick Kowalski is the new Maine Mariners GM and head coach. He was an AHL and an ECHL coach of the year. Rick was also the coach of Bridgeport the last 2 seasons, so I'm a little conflicted. Yeah, Bridgeport has not been great. I think we can put some of that on ownership and general manager leadership for Bridgeport. They've sucked. That's the only way I can put it. They've been absolutely garbage. And all you have to do is turn one of their games on Flow Hockey to see that no one is there. And I don't know how much of that was on Rick, Kenny. I think you're with me on that, but I understand the confliction between the two. I think the Bruins are getting on board with ECHL being a proper funnel, though. Florida has really started to do that, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're seeing the influx of players in the youth, and that's why yes, they have veterans like AJ Greer and so on and so forth, all the former Bruins in their bottom 6, but they're able to supplement their roster with cheap players because they build them up through their system. Bruins have a lot of failures in the NCAA too, but I do agree with Don. He's probably 2 years away from being AHL ready. So he's 2 years away from being 2 years away is the best way to probably put it. But the talent is there. So it's I'm looking forward to seeing what his next step is so we can continue to follow him along. But hopefully he just gets healthy because can't do anything without that. There was one other thing I had on. Oh, James Hagens. Mm-hmm. Speaking of NCAA, he's going to be going back to BC. I think that was kind of briefly mentioned before. In short, it's the right move, in my opinion.
100%.
Any thoughts on that beyond that?
No, I'm glad that I think that if he came out, like if he didn't return to BC, I think that it puts the pressure too much on him when it doesn't need to be there yet. And it's only going to further help his development. And I know that that's not what casual fans want to hear, but it's the right decision.
Yeah. Enjoy watching him at BC when the tickets aren't $500 a piece. Like, enjoy it for a little while. Realistically, the likelihood is he will have a decent season, if not fantastic, and he'll be in Providence by the time the calendar is over. So, and then Kenny adds on with the ECHL. Yes, they played Jackson Edward in the ECHL to conclude last season. Plus, Providence just signed Brooklyn Kalmakov. Love that they're using the ECHL.
Yeah. The Bruins have gotten better about it with the Maine Mariners. I think it started with a couple of years ago was when they really started to use Maine more than
I think Evan Gold's leading that push.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense, for him to lead that push. But yeah, Jackson Edward, when did he go? When did he get sent there?
Halfway through the year.
Yeah, and it
The
was
thing
better
is, he
for
wasn't
him
playing.
because it was better for his development to go to the ECHL than to stay buried in the AHL. It's just going to make him that much stronger.
Yeah, he was on the bench. He was not
Right.
on the bench. He wasn't even addressing. The
And that's
Providence Bruins had too many people last year.
And that's the thing that a lot of people forget too, is that just because a prospect, we talk about this all the time, like when we talk about Patra and McCurloff and even Lysell, like if they're not going to push someone out of the lineup, the worst thing you can do is have them be stagnant and sitting up on the ninth floor or, in the, not dressing and not getting the minutes. So where does the development come from? It comes from either playing in the AHL or the ECHL or staying in the NCAA. You know what I mean? Until they're ready to actually make that jump and push someone out of the lineup. Now, so with the thing with Jackson Edward, like we just said, he wasn't getting the minutes. So are you gonna burn out his development by having him just watch games, or are you gonna allow him to go and play?
Yeah, and I think that's where like a lot of people are sitting here going, the kids should be in the NHL. The Patra, Minton, Blumel, like these guys need NHL time, blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure Dom asked if they've extended their affiliation with Maine yet.
No, it expired.
I thought I saw something that they had extended it.
I don't see anything. The last extension was in 2023, and it was a 2-year extension. Yeah, that was the last thing, was 2023, and it expired at the end of this past season.
Yeah, as of now, it may have ended. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything past 24-25 season. I can't imagine that they're not working on something, but I don't know. I'll do some more digging on it to see. Yeah, Dom says it expires on September 15th. Then he says, I'm not sure if they extended it yet.
I'm really not seeing anything about it being extended.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So I'll do some more digging on it to see if I can find anything out. And Dom, maybe if you hear anything, you'll let us know. And then Kenny has this information. We were talking about Jackson Edward. He said very late last season, he played like 7 games in Maine, and he was a top pairing defenseman. He went like a month without dressing before being sent down. Yep. And then he said Edward also got suspended after his first ECHL game for fighting off the draw, which is a very Jackson Edward thing to do. So, Stefan asked, do the P Bruins have affiliations with European teams? I don't believe they're able to have a direct affiliation. Dom might be able to answer this in greater detail in the comments, because I think the way players move from the European leagues over, depending on how they're doing it, waivers would be required. So I don't think they're able to just have a specific affiliation. They just own a player's rights, or they don't. Dom, correct me if I'm wrong on that for this question. That's my understanding of it. So they had an affiliation with a team in Finland, but it expired. So I'm not sure how that would work. We'll do some digging on that one, Stefan, for you to get some exact answers. We'll have that kind of information for the next shift pod when Kenny and I launch that, because that's where we're going to dive into a lot of the European leagues, the Canadian juniors, and all that stuff, because a lot of that is going to come for prospects and a prospect's path to the NHL. Because someone like the Bruins had drafted, we were talking about him earlier before we started the show, a player like Matthias Mantikivi. His rights ended up expiring, or Jonathan Mirenberg, his rights expired, but they had the players' rights. So they could still get those players because they're not playing for other AHL or NHL teams. It's just what's the process and that sort of stuff. So Jackson Edward, though, is going to be another fun one to watch. So let me see. But yeah, there was a thought that I had on the Mintons, the Platras, and stuff like that. You were talking about how kind of that question, who are they pushing out of the lineup? That's what you had said to get me down that thought path. That's where players like Esimont and Corrali and Janot, like that's where those guys come from, because they build the depth and they make a player like Matthew Poitras have to earn his spot, and it gives them an idea. So, like, if Matthew Poitras can't beat out Michael Esimont, should he be in the NHL? Like, because if you have 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22-year-old players in the NHL who aren't ready, you're the Sharks. You're the Blackhawks.
Right.
You're Buffalo. Like, have you ever noticed what happened with a player like Jack Quinn's development? Look at Zach Benson. All the talent in the world, but he's not fully developed and he's in the NHL.
Right.
We make fun, or fans make fun of the Buffalo Sabres for players going on to other places and winning Stanley Cups. Why do you think that is? They move on from players too soon because they're not fully developed, because they're playing them in the NHL. They're getting a little bit better about it. Devin Levi is a great example.
Former Husky.
Yes, sir. They're getting better about it. However, they've been doing it for far too long.
Well, and that's where, so you look at those teams, you look at Anaheim, you look at San Jose, you look at Chicago, you look at Buffalo, even Ottawa to a point. You look at some of those teams and they have their prospects in the lineup day in and day out. And that's what Bruins want. That's what Bruins fans want. They don't, but the flip side of that is having losing seasons year after year after year. Hello?
Yep.
Space
I'm
Cave.
with you. I'm with you. Sorry, I was counting something because there's another point to this too. So,
but that's the problem when you have players that, and again, we talk about this at nauseum. I mean, literally at nauseum. Do you want Matthew Poitras on your fourth line?
No.
What is he learning on the fourth line? Nothing, because he's not getting minutes and he's not doing anything. So
Yeah,
he's
I got
down in
nothing.
Providence and he's getting all those minutes and he's learning the system and he's seeing the power play, the penalty kill, and he's becoming a 200-foot player, and he's becoming your next David Krejci. Isn't that the benefit of keeping his development at the right pace or having him in a Bruins lineup?
I've got a player pulled up. I want to see if you can tell who this is. Former Sabre. Okay.
Uh-huh.
In 2014, he played 9 games for the Sabres and had 1 point. He was coming off of a season in the WHL. Dom, don't give it away. I'm sure you're going to know it right off the bat. Where he had 65 points in 47 games. He played 3 games for Rochester, put up 3 assists, and immediately they called him up and played 9 games in Buffalo. All right. He then spent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons total in Buffalo. And his highest point total was 65 points in 82 games in 2018-2019. All right. His final season in Buffalo posted 40 points in 54 games and wore a letter. He then got traded and immediately posted 82 points in 78 games the following season with the Panthers. Now, the 7 seasons that he spent in Buffalo, the team sucked, so they could have put him in Rochester, but he played a grand total of 3 games in Rochester. And the development just wasn't there. 42 points, 47 points, 50 points, 65, 50, and 40.
Okay.
If he had played 3 seasons in Rochester to fully round out his game, don't you think before they traded him, Sam Reinhart would have been better off in Buffalo?
Yeah.
Instead, they developed him in the NHL.
At first, I thought you were going with Drew Stafford.
Nope.
Because he's another one that got thrown to the wolves in Buffalo. You know what I mean?
Kenny got it, though. I'll give him credit.
Yeah.
It just immediately he doubles his point total. The following season dips a little bit to 67 points, then has 94 and 81. You think Sam Reinhart finally learned how to play hockey, or did he finally learn how to play NHL hockey?
Right.
And let's face it, during that suckfest 7-year period for the Sabres, as good as he could have been, he had other players who were going through the same learning curve as he was.
Right.
So instead of being a 3-year learning curve like it could have been in Rochester, it was a 7-year learning curve. Immediately goes to a new team and goes, I know what I'm doing now.
Right.
And now he's got 2 cups.
Right.
Dom just threw this line out there for the Bruins. Zacha, Patra, and Misty.
I think we talked about that last week, but I think we talked about Middlestat as opposed to Patra. But I would not be opposed to that.
I'm not against it. I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't hate Patra-Zacha combo either. I struggle with the direction of the top 9 simply because I don't know where Casey Middlestat falls.
Well, isn't that Mitzi?
Would it be Middle? Dom, did you mean Middlestat or did you mean? Yeah, no, I guess it would be Middlestat.
But
so who's on the right?
I think we talked about having because we both agree that Patra is not a wing. He needs to be a center. But now you have 3 players on that one line that can play center or wing.
But can Middlestat play on the right side? Can Zacha play on the right side? I don't know. And let's see, Patra's the right-hand shot in the middle. Unless the plan would be to put Middlestat in the middle, Patra on the right. But
again, we're talking about the fact that you have a right-handed shot, a left-handed shot, or whatever. Look at the line of Pastrnak, Geekie, and Lindholm.
Yeah, all righties. I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think that matters. I think that driving the play, it's going to be Patra driving the play. And like I've said a few times that I think Zacha plays well when he's not driving the play. I think he plays better when he's not under the pressure of driving the play.
See, the substitute I would make on that line would be taking Mitzi out and putting in Arvidsson because he shoots the puck so much. Patra, like Zaka's got a great shot when he uses it, but Patra will find shooters. Let's see, where is my cursor? I want to pull up Dom's comment here. I saw Potsy a week and a half ago working out. He winked at me and smiled and said, "Coming to Boston for opening night." He is working his ass off again. I love to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
As Kenny mentions. So I don't know what's more shocking about that. Matthew Poitras in the gym or Dom in the gym?
Wow, gauntlet.
It's got to be Matthew Poitras being in the gym. That's got to be the bigger surprise. I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Poitras ends up being the second line center. I also wouldn't be surprised if you see him in Providence.
I would be okay with Matthew Poitras being second or third line because I think that this team, other than your line of Lindholm, Pasternak, and Geeky, I think the minutes are going to be much more spread out. So I would be fine with him on the second or third line because I think that your third line is not going to be your typical grinder line. I think it's going to be a mixture. The same thing with your second. I think it's just your fourth line is your fourth line. That's going to be your banging some bodies, making it tough, whatever. But I think your second and third line is going to be, it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to, so I would have no problems with him. But like you said, I mean, do I need... I'm laughing at that.
Kenny says,
out of the corner of my eye.
Sources telling me Dom outbenched Poitras, hearing Dom bench 3 plates on each side. See, if it was Kevin who made that comment, I would say he benched 3 plates of wings on each side. But it's Dom. Dom doesn't eat on shows, so I can't make that joke. On the fourth line, where does Beecher fit in? Because right now your fourth line looks like it's leaning towards Easymont, Jeannot, Kastelik.
I don't think Jeannot's on your fourth line.
No?
No. I think he's on your third line.
I think he can get away with your third line. I think people are underestimating Tanner Jeannot and what he can actually bring. I know everybody looks at that last year in Nashville and says it's, it's an anomaly and stuff. But if you really look at how he's been used with Tampa and in LA and other areas, he's been used in a fourth line role. So he's played a fourth line role, which is not a scoring role. He's not playing with players who can help him take advantage of his shot. I think he'll be given a fair shot to make the third line.
Well, who's to say that Beecher doesn't end up on the third line as more of a, maybe he's not your, your in your face. If maybe it is, Kastelik, Jeannot on that fourth line with Easymont, you know what I mean? Like you never know. And then you have Beecher on your third line. I don't think we're gonna know anything until this team hits training camp.
Yeah, I also don't mind the fact that they're in a position where they have
because you also have Corrali. You also, you know what I mean? There's so many different names out there that we're all forgetting about because it's just this lineup is so unknown other than that first line.
Yeah, I for lack of better phrasing, they have too many players, but at the same time,
they have too many players that play the same role.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Dom, someone please tell me how great Beecher is on faceoffs. I don't hear it enough.
Is that sarcasm or is he being real? Because
no, that's like his claim to fame is Beecher's really good on faceoffs, and that's why people want him in the lineup because he's good. He can move over and take a faceoff. He can move over and take a faceoff, and I mean the guy can't score. Like he'll miss an open net with a shot 3 feet away, but I like Kenny's question: is Beecher to Providence the worst thing in the world?
not for me. I think that he should have spent time in Providence last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to learn just how much he was affected by the hand injury.
I was gonna say that too. I mean, that's the other thing too, is like how long was he nursing that hand injury?
My understanding is it was extensive, like in
Right.
terms of term. So like
because he was a pale version of the player he was the year before.
Yeah, I
think
just
we're gonna see a lot of Bruins players have bounce back seasons that I don't think a lot of people are counting on. I think a lot of people think that what they did last year is indicative of what they're going to do this year. And again, I will name, Jeremy Swayman, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov. I think we're going to see, I think you're going to see a different Mason Lohrei not having that pressure of doing what he had to do last year because half the defensive core was injured. I think that we're really going to see a lot of differences, and I think that even though the players that the Bruins brought in may not light the world on fire, they're decent enough that this team is going to be competitive.
Yeah.
What is that noise?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay. Sorry, I transitioned over to different earbuds, but I was hearing everything you were saying. So smooth transition over, minus apparently that. Dom adds, Beecher is so effing great on faceoffs. He wins 4 more faceoffs than he loses for every 100 draws he takes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people lose perspective on that statistic. Being 54% versus 50%, like it's really not that big of a difference overall, unless you're taking 600 faceoffs in a season.
Well, I disagree because I think that if Charlie Coyle had 54%, then people wouldn't have been crapping all on Charlie Coyle as much as they were.
But because of the difference in roles, so last season, and let's see, last season.
Well, listen, a face-off win is a face-off win is a face-off win.
Yes, but the sample size matters. It's very much similar when it comes to the percentage. It's very much similar, in my opinion, to the plus.
I'm not talking about a guy that takes 3 face-offs. We're talking about your fourth line center that took every face-off that his line was on the ice for. You know what I mean? So that sample size, yes, it may not be as clear as Charlie Coyle, but how many more did Charlie Coyle lose compared to what he won?
So last year, Charlie Coyle in Boston, because we can only look at his Boston numbers for the sake of our conversation, he lost 275 faceoffs and won 266. So he was at 49.2%. For, we'll call that a little over 500 faceoffs. John Beecher also had a little over 500 faceoffs, but he won 281 versus 261 that he lost. So a difference of 20 swung 51.8% versus 49.2%.
Right.
So it's a difference of what, 3 or 4 faceoffs over the course of 100. And the point I would be making on the volume, the part of the volume percentage that matters is, for instance, with Charlie Coyle back in 2018-19, he was at 45% on the faceoff dot. He lost 380, and won 322. So the, what is that, 700 plus sample size is much more significant than the 500 that he had last season with Boston. So the difference being he took another 200 plus in Colorado.
But Chris, let's be realistic for 1 second. Other than hockey nerds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who looks at actual breakdowns versus just percentage?
Well, that's the problem.
But again, we're talking about the casual fans, because
Kenny, I'd trade those 4 face-off wins for him to score on a wide open net. Dom points out the real point is Beecher's not as good at face-offs than most people and fans and media make him out to be. Which
I asked if he was being sarcastic, and you told me no.
That's what I'm saying. Is he's saying he's so great at face-offs. That part was sarcastic. He's not being sarcastic about the difference of what those 4 face-offs really mean. So, sorry, miscommunication on that. Kenny says maybe they can trade Beecher to a team that's looking for a face-off specialist.
Kenny didn't say that. William said that.
I'm sorry, William said that. I was looking at Kenny's comment in the queue here, but Ian's got a question or a statement here. He says, I might be alone on this, but I wouldn't mind the Bruins making a deal with Vegas to get Thomas Hertl.
Well,
I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind them making a deal to get Jack Eichel too, but what's it going to cost you, and is it going to be worth it?
Right.
So, and no, that's not to say they're going to go get Jack Eichel. I know people are talking about it already, but there are going to be a lot of names thrown out there for Boston because of this, because of that. 2026 free agents. I think one of the worst things that's come out this summer was Elliot Friedman's quote about them saving cap space for 2026 free agents, because people take that completely the wrong way. It's not bad to have cap flexibility. And Don Sweeney has always maintained, for the most part, having strong flexibility with the salary cap.
Well, the other thing is, too, is that who is really available this year?
Not very many players were all that great.
Right. Yes, Kenny, I think you should.
Should I order my McDavid Bruins jersey now? Go for it.
Let's back up for a minute. Every team that wasn't in on Mitch Marner was saving cap space for something else. You know what I mean? Because this free agent class, the players that were available were either signed with their existing team to extensions, like, I don't know, Sam Bennett.
Like all of them?
Right. Or were signed and traded, like Mitch Marner. You know what I mean? So what did the Bruins fans actually expect Don Sweeney to do?
I genuinely don't know. Like, I'm happy with what he brought in, not because I'm sitting here going Don Sweeney fanboy here. I'm happy with what he brought in because he brought in pieces that were missing. How often last year did we talk about, and you were there, the locker room, the way the locker room was going, how the vibes were in the locker. Like, I know people made fun of the vibes in the locker room comments and stuff, but like the team was losing their way. They were losing everything was in flux. So a lot of leadership aspects were up in the air, and when you have your coach halfway out the door to start the season, like then you're fluttering with being in and out of a playoff spot. You are sitting there going, what do we do at the trade deadline? Who's going to be here when the trade deadline is over? Like, there was a lot just unknown. He brought in guys who will help settle the locker room down.
Right.
But
it's not just that. He brought in, we talked about this too. The Bruins have always been built back end out. They've been built on their physicality. They've been built on goaltending. They've been built on defense. Goal scoring was always just an extra. So we always say that the Bruins were missing the secondary scoring, which they were. But in the same sense, what if the Bruins, when the Bruins are successful, why are they successful?
Because they get the physical play going. They are able to score across their lineup. They have great goaltending, and they're solid from defense.
So what did Sweeney address this offseason?
He addressed two-way players, more defensive strength. And I know people want to sit here and complain about, Henry Jokiharju and Jordan Harris and whatnot. One, I think they're vastly overlooking Victor Soderstrom. I think they're vastly overlooking that deal. Very, very underrated deal. Guy has NHL experience and has a real chance to make the lineup. Jordan Harris also is probably being a little underevaluated there. And like, what else were they gonna go do? Like, the next available defenseman who could have done anything to help solidify your top six would have been Rasmus Andersson, and you had to trade for him. And Calgary's under no obligation and no rush to trade him right now.
Right.
And beyond that, what were you going to do? Add another left-handed shot in Bowen Byram? Who, again, Buffalo was under no obligation and no high pressure to deal? And I don't want to hear, he wanted out of Buffalo. He's extended there. If the player doesn't want to be there, they demand a trade like Chinakhov has in Columbus. And they make it known we don't want to be here, or they don't extend. Like, it's not that hard.
Or they extend knowing that they're going to get traded, like Mitch Marner.
Right, and then there's a sign and trade.
Right.
Which is what we saw with Mitch Marner.
Right.
Although that one, I think we had a little bit of blackmail going on. So, Dom says Hagens is coming. Stenberg is next year. No need for Hurdle. And that's the thing, Dom. I agree. I don't think they need to go. I think trading for a guy like Thomas Hurdle would be a panic move. Because I think most people, and if you gave some truth serum to Don Sweeney, he would sit there and go, is the 2025-26 roster going to contend for a cup? No.
No, but I think they can contend for a wild card spot, if not a regular. It's not out of the realm that they can't be in the. No, they're not going to top the division, but they may not even be the second team in the division. But they could secure that third spot.
Absolutely. Now, if you trade Pavel Zacha, Matthew Poitras, and let's say another prospect to bring in Thomas Hurdle, does that make you better? Or does it make you roughly the same?
Me personally, I think
overall
it's worse.
That's my point.
Yeah. So, and I like to go on Williams, comment, Sweeney signed too many bottom sixers. I think that the thing that is being overlooked too is, so the Bruins are looking for secondary scoring, right?
Yep.
What is Easymont known for?
Being a pain in the ass.
And shooting the puck.
Yep.
How many times did you hear people screaming at the Bruins, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Arvidsson playing under Marco Sturm. The Bruins are going to have to change their system. Not 100%, but they're going to revamp it a little bit.
Right. And just real quick, because I know people want to look at what Arvidsson did last year in Edmonton. He didn't fit in Edmonton either. Arvidsson in his final 2 years with the Kings, which were 49 and 59 point seasons, back-to-back seasons of 227 and 228 shots taken. All right. And yes, there was a little bit of success in one season more so than the other when it comes to goal scoring and when it comes to shooting percentage and all that.
What were his goals?
20 out of 227 and 26 out of 228.
I'll take a 20 goal scorer.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, that's one thing that that's one thing. If you look at the Bruins, other than David Pastrnak, right? How many years have the Bruins had 5 20 goal scorers versus 1 50 goal scorer?
Right. And I'm also
what
doing
were their
little
most
math
successful seasons?
Also, I did the math because in 23-24, in 18 games, he had 59 shots, 6 goals. He was on pace for another 268 shots if you just average out what he had.
Right.
Last year in Edmonton, he dropped to 158 shots taken, and he still had 15 goals. So this is someone who knows how to find the back of the net, and he's not afraid to shoot the puck. Last year, he did not get nearly as much ice time. He also dropped by 3 minutes of ice time almost.
Right. He may surprise Bruins fans to be that secondary scoring that they've been lacking because of how much he shoots the puck and his speed. He's got some speed.
Dom, we love you too, and hopefully we can connect more soon. We will we'll see you again very soon. I would not be surprised if Geeky is on the line with Lindholm and Pastrnak all season, and if Arvidsson is able to play with Patra all season, I would not be surprised if you saw Pastrnak have his kind of Pastrnak season, 40, 50 goals, and then some. I would not be surprised to see Geeky push 30 and Arvidsson push 30. I wouldn't be shocked. So I know we're approaching an hour and a half. This season I'm going to be better on the times. Because we'll go all night if we can. Hopefully this season we're both back to full-time work. I know you're already back, so you've got stuff to do tomorrow. But we could go on about this all day.
Right.
And I know we'll keep getting comments and questions, and we love it, and we can table some of it for next show. But do you have any final thoughts? I want to try and keep it to an hour and a half, which is about 5 minutes anyway. So if there's any final thoughts on this topic or anything else that you know what? We've got to do our Fleet Minute.
I just think that everyone needs to stop projecting this lineup before they actually hit camp, because the past 3 seasons, people have projected and have been wrong one way or another. You know what I mean? I just think that there's way too many unknown variables, from coaching to goaltending to goal scoring to defense to everything, that we just don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that, like you said, this team is not a cup contender. 100% not a cup contender. But like I said, there's no reason to believe that this team can't be a wild card, if not the final spot in the division. You know what I mean? I think that we need to wait and see what happens when they hit the ice?
We'll do some early we'll do some way too early predictions.
Yep.
And then we'll do some preseason camp predictions, see how much we differ.
Mhm.
And then we'll do some predictions kind of after the first month of the season kind of
Yep.
thing once we've got a little bit of info. Real quick, Ian added, I was thinking Middlestad for Hurdle because Vegas probably wants to cut salary to get Anderson. The problem with that, Ian, is between Middlestad and Hurdle, it's only a $1 million difference. I would rather pay the extra million and have Thomas Hurdle than have Casey Middlestad. I don't know about you. And then Williams says, I think Middlestad will have to play his way out of the 2C because they want to up his trade value. And that's the difficulty with him because he's got the same term as Pavel Zacha. I don't know what the direction is. And yes, we've heard Pavel Zacha's name out there in trade rumors. What's the phrase I always say? Oh, yeah, that's Don Sweeney doing his job. So real quick, though, to wrap up, we will take the last few minutes here so that you can give us some updates on the Boston Fleet, if you've got any. I know they recently signed a couple major extensions.
Oh, not only did they sign a trio of huge extensions, but obviously naming Chris Sparry their coach. But then they also locked in Aaron Frankel, Megan Keller, and Alina Mueller, which those were the first three players that Daniel Marmer protected under the expansion draft. So they were all signed through the end of this season, and she signed them to a 2-year extension. So that is huge. That is the core of their players. Aaron Frankel is still arguably the best goaltender in the PWHL. Megan Keller is one of the best defenders. And Alina Mueller, if used properly, is going to be a phenomenal scoring. And I think that she's going to play much better under Chris than she did Courtney. Nothing against Courtney, but Courtney didn't use her the way she should have been used. And then they also re-signed Shane Mahoney and Lauren Gable. So there's a lot of good things going on with the Fleet. I know that their roster was completely overhauled. They said goodbye to Hillary Knight. This expansion draft really changed because not only were the Fleet affected, but every other team in the league were affected. And I'm curious to see, it's funny because one of the things that Chris Sparry said was that one thing he will guarantee is that the Fleet will be a hard team to play against. Where have we heard that before? Where have we heard that before? They're going to be aggressive. If they don't have the puck, they're going to get the puck. I mean, he's saying all the things that the Bruins have said for years. And again, Marmer spent time with the Bruins. And again, like the Bruins, they're built from the back end out. So I'm curious to see. And they're going to have a lot of their draft picks. Like they're going to be in the lineup this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned the roster turnover there, but they were expanding from only 6 teams to 8 teams.
Yeah.
So because this is what the 3rd season we're going into for the PWHL,
Right.
and some people might not even include the year where they were all PWHL Boston, PWHL Minnesota, but it was a real season.
Right.
It's
not to mention they went from 26 games to 32 games, so they upped their schedule. Not only that, but the Seattle GM was Boston's former assistant GM.
Yeah, they were going to take some Boston players.
Right.
It's just, this is what happens when you have 6 teams.
Yeah.
Most people just don't remember when the NHL expanded from 6 teams.
Right.
So it's a lot different when you're picking one player off of 30 other teams. I think most people can remember the Vegas expansion draft. So you protect 8 players or 3 and 5 or whatever it was, and you got to protect your no trade. They don't even have no movement clauses in their contracts or anything like that. So the league is just starting. This is what's going to happen, but it's fun to watch, and anybody who's interested in the business side, keep an eye on the PWHL, because I could be wrong, but the 2-year contract, isn't that like their max term right now that they can do?
Yeah.
So right now the NHL is going down from the 7-8 year max contracts. The PWHL only has a 2-year max contract. So roster turnover is also going to happen a lot quicker. So anyways, any final thoughts, whether it be Fleet or Bruins? We are right at that hour and 30 mark. I want to try to keep it there, but if you have anything else, I want to make sure we get it in.
No, I'm impatiently waiting for the training camp roster to be, I'm waiting for that. I'm not patiently waiting for the prospect challenge in Buffalo as well. I'm wanting to see these players, and I want to see the Bruins get into training camp and see what we have. I don't think I'm excited to see what Micro Storm is going to bring, and I just need my hockey back.
Well, as Dom mentioned, there is hockey going on. It's just not Bruins hockey. So we'll
get
there.
It's also different when you're watching that type of hockey versus, it's different. So,
but when they're playing the Holinka Gretzky tournament, that means hockey's coming. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm completely impatiently waiting for it as well. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome season, and I know Kenny's out there watching. I'm looking forward to getting our show underway. We've got, like I said, a couple really great young players lined up to talk about their hockey journeys, and I think people will like what Kenny and I are cooking up, and hopefully people tune in for that. You'll be able to catch that on our Twitter page. We'll probably broadcast a few of them on What's Brewing on YouTube as well, just to kind of help get that out there. But we want to hear from people too. If there's players they want to know about in the lower levels, they can reach out to us, and we'll be able to keep an eye on them. So with that though, go
listen,
Bees.
My DMs should be open too. So on Twitter. So if you have questions or a topic that you want Chris and I to discuss, hit one of us up. Like, don't wait until the show to submit a question. Ask us something beforehand so that we can, talk about it.
This season we'll have a much more used email box. We have a Twitter for the show, so we'll use the inbox for that as well. I'm looking at some call options as well. But yeah, we want to answer your questions, and that's why we love, if you notice, we prioritize the live chat questions and comments, because we do this so for the information you guys want to put out there, but we'll let you know what we think is interesting too. So, but I want to thank everybody for jumping on and tuning in, and keep an eye out for more announcements as to what's to come. Lastly, I will shout out Jay Pike, the Baked Bear, will be returning his show in the fall. So be sure to tune into that. He'll be doing it as a podcast only, so you'll have to check out the links there. But very entertaining show. I know you've joined him a couple times on there. Love Jay. Shout out Jay Pike and the Baked Bear Pod. And for now, like I said, the last thing I got, as always,